"You stupid kid." Billionaire CEO shouted at Maid's daughter. "Lost $7.5 billion deal instantly asterisk asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. In the heart of Silicon Valley, where the world's biggest tech empires are built, a single event would unfold that no one could have anticipated. It started in the sleek, modern offices of Marcus Westbrook, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business strategies. Westbrook, the founder of a multi-billion-dollar tech company, was facing one of the most critical moments in his career. The deal of a lifetime, a partnership worth $7.5 billion, was on the line. Tensions were high, and nothing could afford to go wrong. As the boardroom buzzed with discussions of financial projections and market strategies, a small, seemingly insignificant moment would soon shatter everything. Standing quietly in the corner of the room was Lily, the 10-year-old daughter of the maid, who had been asked to help with the meeting. Her mother, a quiet woman who worked tirelessly to support her family, had been instructed to bring Lily to work today. With no school and nowhere else to go, Lily had obediently followed her mother to the office, knowing her presence wasn't welcome but still trying to stay out of the way. She was dressed simply in a faded blue dress, a far cry from the tailored suits and expensive attire of the business elite in the room. She sat at the far corner, her head down, her small hands clasped tightly in her lap as she tried not to draw attention to herself. But then, the tension in the room grew unbearable. Westbrook, already on edge, began to lash out. His face turned red with frustration as the latest round of negotiations began to unravel. In a moment of irritation, he turned to Lily, who had innocently moved closer to the table, possibly trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening. His voice boomed, sharp and unrelenting. "You stupid kid. What do you think you're doing here? Get back to where you belong." The room fell silent. For a moment, everyone froze. The billionaire's harsh words seemed to hang in the air, thick with contempt. Lily, with her head still down, flinched at the insult. The other members of the room, all influential men and women in the business world, exchanged uncomfortable glances, but no one dared to speak up. Lily's mother, who had been busy preparing drinks for the meeting, paused for a brief second, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and shame. But then, as if by instinct, Lily stood up, her tiny hands gripping the back of the chair as she raised her head. Her voice, soft yet firm, cut through the thick tension. "You're wrong," she said, her words echoing in the now silent room. Everyone turned to look at her in disbelief. A child had just spoken up to a billionaire, something no one else had dared to do. The CEO, his face twisted in a mixture of rage and confusion, sneered. "What do you know, kid? This is none of your business." But Lily didn't back down. She took a deep breath and walked forward, her small feet moving with a surprising confidence. She pointed to the contract on the table, which Westbrook had been nervously flipping through moments earlier. "You've missed something," she said, her voice steady. "This clause here will cost you the deal. If you don't fix it, the entire agreement is going to fall apart." The room went still. The executives who had been too afraid to challenge Westbrook were now staring at the young girl. Westbrook's face turned pale as he looked down at the document Lily had pointed to. His hand trembled as he read the clause she had highlighted, and it became clear she was right. Without realizing it, Westbrook had missed a critical detail that would have cost him everything. The deal was indeed about to collapse, and his empire could suffer a massive loss. The silence in the room was deafening. Westbrook, usually so composed, stood frozen, unable to speak. The deal, which had seemed like a guaranteed success, was now in jeopardy. And it all started with a child, one who had been dismissed as stupid by the very man who had built an empire from nothing. The rest of the room, witnessing the turn of events, began to murmur. It was clear that the power dynamics had shifted, and the child, once seen as insignificant, had just saved the day. What had started as an insult now seemed like a lesson in humility. Lily, with the quiet wisdom of a child, had turned the tables on the billionaire CEO, proving that sometimes the smallest voices can change the course of history. As the room sat in stunned silence, no one could believe what had just happened. Westbrook, the billionaire CEO, stood frozen in front of the contract, his face now pale. His mind raced as he tried to process what Lily, the maid's daughter, had just pointed out. For a moment, he was lost for words. The tension in the room was palpable, thick with the weight of the realization that the deal worth $7.5 billion was on the verge of collapsing because of a simple error he had missed. The executives around him, who had been so eager to secure the deal, now looked at each other with nervous glances, their once unwavering confidence now shattered. Westbrook finally found his voice, but it was no longer filled with the same arrogance he had walked into the room with. "How did you even see that?" he muttered, his voice strained. Lily, standing with surprising confidence for a 10-year-old, didn't flinch. "I pay attention to details," she said, her voice steady, as if this were a normal conversation. The executives, who had been silent up until this point, began to murmur among themselves, their disbelief giving way to respect. This was not the reaction Westbrook had expected. He had dismissed her as a child, someone unworthy of his attention, and yet it was she who had saved the deal. It was a humbling moment, one that forced him to confront the truth. He had underestimated her, and in doing so, he had almost lost everything. He looked at Lily, and for the first time that day, his expression softened. You saved this deal," he said, almost to himself. There was a long pause before he added, "Thank you." His words were sincere, but there was still a hint of disbelief in his voice. The executives, who had once looked down on Lily, now looked at her with a new sense of respect. It was clear that she was no longer just the maid's daughter in their eyes. She was someone who had proven herself, someone with the kind of insight that even the most seasoned professionals had missed. "We've got a lot of work to do," Westbrook said, finally regaining his composure. "Let's get this deal back on track." As he turned back to the contract, the room began to buzz with activity again. But this time, it was different. There was a newfound respect for the young girl who had, without hesitation, stepped up when no one else did. Lily, for her part, didn't seem to care much for the attention. She quietly slipped back into the corner of the room, her head down, as she had been before. She wasn't interested in the praise or the admiration. All she cared about was that her mom wouldn't have to work as hard anymore. As the deal began to get back on track, the executives resumed their discussions, but the air in the room had changed. There was a sense of reverence now, a recognition that sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected places. Westbrook had learned something valuable that day, something that would stick with him long after the deal was finalized. It wasn't just about money, power, or business acumen. It was about humility and the realization that no one should ever be underestimated. As Lily left the room with her mother, she felt a quiet sense of pride. She had done something important, something that would make a difference. And though she may never fully understand the magnitude of what she had just done, she knew that for once, she had been seen, not as just the maid's daughter, but as someone who had changed the course of history. As the days passed, the effects of what had happened in the boardroom began to settle in. Westbrook, despite his initial anger and arrogance, couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that lingered after Lily had pointed out the mistake. He had walked into that room with absolute certainty, thinking he could control every aspect of the deal, but one simple mistake, and a 10-year-old girl, had caused everything to nearly unravel. For the first time in a long while, the billionaire CEO found himself questioning his own judgment. It wasn't just about the deal anymore. It was about how he had treated Lily, how he had underestimated her. As the week went on, he found himself replaying that moment in his head over and over again. Lily's calm demeanor, her courage in the face of his harsh words, and her sharp intellect had forced him to confront his own arrogance. He had spent years building a legacy, but at what cost? Was he so caught up in his success that he had lost sight of what truly mattered? Meanwhile, Lily's life had returned to its quiet rhythm. She had never asked for the attention that had come her way, and she didn't care for the newfound respect she received from the people in the office. To her, the most important thing was that her mother, who worked tirelessly to make ends meet, would now have an easier life. Lily didn't understand the complexities of billion-dollar deals or business strategies. She only knew that her actions had made a difference, and that was enough for her. She kept her head down and focused on her studies, quietly grateful that her mother no longer had to work as many hours. As for Westbrook, he began to change in small but noticeable ways. He became more attentive to the people around him, more considerate of those who worked for him, and more aware of the value of humility. His initial embarrassment over the situation had given way to a sense of responsibility. He knew he couldn't continue to operate the way he had before. His empire was built on hard work and determination, but it had also been fueled by a sense of superiority and entitlement that needed to change. One day, Westbrook asked to meet with Lily and her mother. It was an unexpected request, but both were curious about what he had to say. When they arrived at his office, Westbrook greeted them warmly, his demeanor much different from the harsh, cold persona they were used to. "I want to apologize," he said, looking directly at Lily. "I was wrong to treat you the way I did. You have far more wisdom than I gave you credit for, and I respect that. I also want to make things right. I've arranged for your mother to get a promotion with better pay and benefits. She'll be in a position where she won't have to work as many hours." Lily's mother was taken aback. She had never expected anything like this, least of all from the man who had once treated her daughter with such disdain. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. Westbrook nodded, his face serious. "You've taught me an important lesson," he continued. "It's not about money or power. It's about recognizing the value in others, regardless of their status. You've reminded me of that, and I won't forget it." Lily, standing beside her mother, didn't know what to say. She hadn't expected anything from Westbrook. She was just glad that her mother would have a better life. As they left his office, Westbrook watched them go, a sense of peace settling over him. He had learned something important, something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Sometimes, the smallest voices could bring about the greatest changes. And sometimes, it took a child to remind a man of what truly mattered. As time passed, Lily's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. Her mother, now in a better position with higher pay and benefits, no longer had to work long, exhausting hours. For the first time in years, they were able to enjoy quiet moments together without the constant worry about money. Lily was grateful for these small changes, but her heart still carried the weight of the world she had grown up in. Though her life was improving, she remained humble, never seeking the attention that came with her actions. She focused on her schoolwork and spent her free time helping her mother, quietly doing what she could to make life better. Westbrook, on the other hand, had transformed in ways he hadn't expected. The meeting with Lily and her mother had shaken him to his core, and he knew he couldn't go back to his old ways. The moment of humility had opened his eyes to the true value of people, not just in business, but in life. He had spent so many years focusing on profits and power that he had forgotten what it meant to be human. He began to make a conscious effort to be kinder, more empathetic, and more aware of the people around him. His company's culture shifted from one of cutthroat competition to one of respect and collaboration. Westbrook also started to reach out to others in his community. He volunteered his time and money to causes he had once dismissed, realizing that there was more to life than business deals and financial success. However, not everyone was pleased with the changes he had made. Some of the executives at his company viewed his newfound humility as a weakness, and there were whispers behind his back. They didn't understand why he was suddenly concerned with the well-being of his employees, or why he was making decisions that prioritized kindness over profit. But Westbrook didn't mind. He had found something more important than the approval of his colleagues. He had found his own sense of purpose. Meanwhile, Lily's newfound respect among the staff at Westbrook's company didn't go unnoticed. Her quiet confidence and sharp intellect earned her a place in their hearts, but she still kept to herself. One day, as Lily was helping her mother at work, one of the executives, Mr. Hargrave, who had been among those skeptical of Westbrook's changes, approached her. He smiled politely, but there was a hint of something else in his eyes. "You know, Lily," he said, his tone smooth, "I never thought much of people like you. But what you did for this company was impressive. Maybe you could help me with a project sometime." Lily, always wary of the praise, simply nodded, her response calm and measured. "Thank you, Mr. Hargrave, but I'm not interested in helping with business. I'm focused on what matters most." Her words surprised him, and he didn't know how to respond. He had expected her to be flattered by his offer, but instead, she had reminded him that not everything in life revolved around business. As Westbrook continued to witness the change in Lily and her mother, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. He had made mistakes, but he had learned something that couldn't be taught in boardrooms or on business trips. The real power lay in the ability to listen, to recognize the worth in others, and to give back when given the chance. Westbrook realized that the true measure of success wasn't about how much money one could accumulate, but about the impact one had on the lives of others. And as for Lily, she didn't need the accolades or the recognition. She had already made a difference, and that was enough for her. She understood now that the smallest actions could have the biggest effects, and that humility, kindness, and respect were the true markers of greatness. As the months went by, the ripple effect of Lily's actions continued to shape the lives around her. Westbrook's company flourished under his new leadership style. The culture shift he had initiated was not only about kindness and humility, but also about innovation and creativity. Employees felt empowered, knowing their voices mattered, regardless of their status or position. Lily, despite her quiet demeanor, had sparked something larger than herself, and it was evident in the changes that followed. Westbrook found himself more present, more engaged in the lives of his employees. He no longer viewed them as just tools to reach his business goals, but as people with ideas, dreams, and potential. He frequently sought their opinions, listening more than ever before. But it wasn't just about his company anymore. Westbrook had become involved in local charities, offering financial support and personal time to causes he had once ignored. He mentored young entrepreneurs, sharing his experiences and insights without the usual air of superiority he once held. For the first time in his life, Westbrook felt truly fulfilled, not by the success of his empire, but by the impact he was making in the lives of others. Lily, on the other hand, continued to focus on her studies. She was still a child, and her innocence and simplicity kept her grounded. She didn't fully understand the extent of what she had done. She just knew that she had helped her mother, and that was enough for her. One afternoon, as she sat at the kitchen table with her mother, working on her homework, she looked up to see her mother staring at her with a proud, almost tearful expression. "Lily, you've changed everything," her mother said softly. Lily, not fully grasping what she meant, just smiled. "I just helped. You do all the hard work." Her mother shook her head. "No, sweetie. You've done something incredible. You've shown people that it's not about how much you have, but what you can do for others." Lily felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling that was more meaningful than any praise she had ever received. She didn't need recognition or accolades. Her heart was content knowing she had made a difference in the world, even in her small way. One day, Westbrook called Lily and her mother to his office again. He had become accustomed to the idea that no matter how powerful he was, there was always someone who could teach him a valuable lesson. This time, he had something important to ask. "Lily," he began, "I've been thinking about something. I've seen how your mother works so hard, and I know you've always been there for her. What would you say if I offered to help you with your education? I want to make sure you have every opportunity to succeed." Lily's eyes widened. "You don't have to do that, Mr. Westbrook. My mom and I are fine. She's happy now." Westbrook smiled. "I know you're fine, but I want to give you something more. I want to help you become the person you're meant to be, with all the possibilities in the world." Lily looked at her mother, who nodded, silently urging her to consider the offer. "Thank you," Lily said quietly. "But I just want to learn and help others, like I've always done." Westbrook, though taken aback by her modesty, understood. He realized that it wasn't about giving her something she didn't need. It was about giving her the tools to shape her own future. "You'll have all the support you need," he assured her. "And when the time comes, you'll be the one changing the world, just like you've already done." Lily smiled. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time, she felt confident that whatever it was, she would be ready. The world was full of opportunities, and she would make the most of them, just as she had always done, quietly, humbly, and with a heart full of kindness. Months had passed since the pivotal moment in Westbrook's office, and the changes in both his life and Lily's were becoming more evident. Westbrook's company had flourished under his new leadership style. What had once been a cold, calculated empire was now a thriving, collaborative community. Employees, many of whom had been overlooked or undervalued in the past, were now respected and heard. Westbrook's commitment to listening, to valuing each person's contributions, was paying off in ways he never expected. The company's morale had skyrocketed, and profits followed suit. Lily, though still a young girl, had become a quiet but significant presence in the office. Her humble demeanor and sharp mind had earned her the respect of the staff. But she didn't care about the recognition. She had always believed that helping others, especially her mother, was the most important thing. Still, the support she had received was undeniable. People began to see her for what she truly was, someone with the potential to accomplish great things. Westbrook, now more open to understanding the world around him, frequently checked in on Lily and her family. He had become a mentor in the truest sense of the word. He had provided her mother with opportunities she never imagined, and he now looked at Lily with a kind of fatherly pride, wanting to ensure her future was as bright as possible. Yet, Lily remained focused on her studies, remaining grounded despite the growing admiration around her. She understood that her actions had made a difference, but she wasn't interested in being anyone's hero. Her only goal was to continue doing what was right, to help her mother and others in need. She knew she had the power to change lives, but that wasn't something she sought out for praise. It was simply part of who she was. One afternoon, Westbrook invited Lily and her mother to a special event at his company. It was a gathering of the top leaders in the industry, a celebration of the company's success and the positive changes they had made. Lily, though initially hesitant, agreed to attend with her mother. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she trusted Westbrook's intentions. The event was held at a grand venue, filled with people dressed in their finest. The walls were adorned with accolades and achievements, a testament to the company's rise to the top. Lily and her mother walked in quietly, both amazed by the extravagant setting. They were greeted by Westbrook, who smiled warmly at them. "I'm so glad you could make it," he said. "Tonight is not just about celebrating success. It's about acknowledging the people who helped make it possible." Lily's heart fluttered with a mix of nerves and excitement. She didn't feel like she belonged in a place like this, but she was grateful for the opportunity. As the evening unfolded, Westbrook took the stage to speak. His speech was filled with gratitude for the employees who had helped shape the company's success. He spoke about humility, respect, and the importance of listening to those who often go unheard. He acknowledged Lily and her mother in the crowd, recognizing them for their role in teaching him the true value of leadership. "Sometimes, the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected places," he said, his eyes locking with Lily's. "It was Lily's quiet wisdom and her mother's tireless work that reminded me of what truly matters. It's not just about business. It's about people, relationships, and making the world a better place." The crowd fell silent, and Lily, feeling the weight of the moment, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She hadn't asked for any of this recognition, but it was nice to know that her actions had made a lasting impact. The evening ended with a sense of unity, the room filled with applause and heartfelt appreciation. As Lily and her mother left the event, Westbrook walked with them, a proud smile on his face. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice soft but sincere, "for everything. You've made a difference in our lives." Westbrook nodded. "You made a difference in mine." As they parted ways, Lily felt a sense of fulfillment. She had never sought recognition, but in that moment, she realized that the smallest actions could indeed change the world. She had done something powerful, not by seeking fame or fortune, but by simply doing what was right. And that, she knew, was enough. As time moved forward, the changes in Westbrook's company and in his own life seemed to solidify. The values he had learned from Lily and her mother had seeped into every corner of his organization. What had started as a single act of humility had transformed the very foundation of the company. The once cutthroat corporate environment now thrived on mutual respect and collaboration. Westbrook made it a point to always lead with empathy and integrity. He had learned the importance of treating every person, no matter their position, with respect. His leadership now inspired loyalty, and his employees had a renewed sense of pride in the work they did. Westbrook's transformation didn't go unnoticed in the business world. The company's profits had soared, and more than that, its reputation had changed. It was no longer known simply for its innovations, but for its strong ethical values and commitment to giving back to the community. The company was now a symbol of success that was driven by more than just the bottom line. It was a model of corporate responsibility, something Westbrook had never considered important before. As Westbrook grew more successful, he never forgot the lesson Lily had taught him. He made sure that his personal growth mirrored the growth of his company. And with that growth came more opportunities to give back. He invested in community outreach programs, providing scholarships to underprivileged students, and partnering with local organizations to offer mentorships and internships. Lily, though still just a young girl, became a symbol of the impact that one small voice could have. She didn't need recognition or fame, but her quiet, unassuming wisdom had led to an entire shift in the way Westbrook ran his business. Her mother, once overworked and underappreciated, now enjoyed the fruits of a much improved life. She had time to focus on her own dreams, and Westbrook made sure that Lily's future would be filled with endless possibilities. Despite the wealth and success surrounding them, Lily and her mother remained humble. They knew that their lives had been changed by a simple act of courage, and they didn't take it for granted. Lily continued to excel in her studies, keeping her focus on the future. She had plans, but she was in no rush. Her ambitions were not driven by a desire for fame or fortune, but by a genuine desire to help others and make a difference in the world. One day, as Lily was helping her mother in the kitchen, Westbrook arrived at their home unexpectedly. He had something important to discuss with them. As they sat down, he explained that he had been thinking about the future, not just his own, but theirs as well. "Lily," he began, "I've seen what you've done for this company and for my life. You've shown me what true leadership is. And now, I want to make sure you have everything you need to succeed. I want to offer you a scholarship for your education, a full ride to any school you choose. I want to make sure you have the resources to pursue whatever dreams you have, without worrying about money or obstacles." Lily looked up at him, surprised but not entirely shocked. She had never asked for anything, but the sincerity in Westbrook's voice told her that this offer was genuine. She turned to her mother, who was equally stunned but smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "Thank you," Lily said, quietly, her voice full of gratitude. "But I don't need anything. I just want to help, like I always have. I've learned that the best way to make a difference is to stay true to what's important, not to chase after things that don't matter." Westbrook nodded, a look of admiration in his eyes. "I understand, Lily, but just know that I'm here to support you, no matter what path you choose." As they continued their conversation, Lily realized something important. She didn't need a scholarship or a fancy job or any material wealth. What she had learned from Westbrook, her mother, and even from herself, was that true success wasn't measured in dollars or titles. It was measured in the lives you touched and the good you did. And that was enough for her. She had already changed the course of history in her own quiet way, and now she was ready to change the world, one small step at a time. As the years went by, Lily's life continued to unfold in unexpected ways, each step taking her closer to her dreams. Her mother, who had once struggled to make ends meet, was now able to work fewer hours, and the family was financially secure. The scholarship that Westbrook had offered her opened doors to prestigious universities, but Lily, true to her nature, stayed grounded. She chose to attend a local college, where she could still remain close to her roots and continue her mission of helping others. Lily's reputation had spread far beyond the walls of Westbrook's company. People in her community started to recognize her for the quiet, determined young woman she had become. Though she had received plenty of offers, both professionally and personally, she never sought the spotlight. Instead, she quietly helped others, whether it was tutoring children in the neighborhood or volunteering at shelters. Westbrook, now more of a mentor than a CEO, kept in touch with her throughout her education. He had learned that true success wasn't about building a financial empire or amassing wealth. It was about empowering those around you, and Lily was living proof of that. One day, several years after that fateful boardroom meeting, Lily was invited to speak at a conference on leadership and corporate responsibility. Westbrook, now a well-respected figure in both the business and philanthropic worlds, was in the audience. As Lily stood on the stage, ready to speak to a crowd of business leaders and activists, she reflected on how far she had come. She was no longer the shy girl who had stood in the corner of a room, unnoticed. She had become a leader in her own right, inspiring others to follow her example. As she took the microphone, her calm, steady voice filled the room. "Leadership isn't about titles or money," she began. "It's about serving others, empowering them to succeed, and making a real difference in the world. The real measure of success is not how much you have, but how much you give back. Westbrook, sitting in the crowd, watched her with pride. He had always believed in her potential, but now, seeing her stand before a room of influential people, he realized just how much she had accomplished. The world had changed for both of them, and it had all started with a single act of kindness and respect. After her speech, Lily was approached by several leaders in the room, all eager to connect with her. They recognized the wisdom she had, far beyond her years, and they knew that she would continue to inspire and lead for many years to come. Lily, however, wasn't interested in the accolades. She thanked everyone politely and quietly walked away, just as she had always done. She wasn't looking for praise. She was looking for ways to make a difference, one person at a time. As she left the conference, Lily couldn't help but smile. She had come full circle, from the girl who had been dismissed and belittled to a woman who had changed the world with her humility, kindness, and unwavering determination. And as she stepped out into the world, she knew that her journey was far from over. There was still so much to do, so many people to help, and countless lives to touch. She had learned that greatness wasn't about how loud you could speak or how many people knew your name. It was about the quiet impact you made, the difference you brought to others. And as long as she lived, she would continue to make that difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Years passed, and Lily's journey continued to inspire those around her. As she made her mark in the world, she never lost sight of the lessons she had learned from her mother, Westbrook, and from the quiet moments of reflection in her own heart. She had seen firsthand how one small act could ripple through the lives of others, and she had made it her mission to live with purpose, humility, and kindness. She had earned the respect of many, not because she sought it, but because she had earned it through her actions and her unwavering commitment to doing what was right. Her story was no longer just a tale of a young girl who had pointed out a mistake in a billion-dollar deal. It had become a beacon of hope for those who believed that anyone, regardless of their background or status, could make a difference. Lily's influence spread far beyond her community. She worked with organizations that helped young girls from disadvantaged backgrounds, providing them with the education and mentorship they needed to succeed. She also partnered with environmental groups, promoting sustainability and responsible business practices. Westbrook, now a successful philanthropist, continued to support her efforts, offering financial backing and mentorship. But Lily, ever humble, always credited the lessons she had learned from others for her success. She had never forgotten how Westbrook's transformation had started with one small act of kindness, his willingness to listen, to learn, and to grow. One day, Lily received a letter. It was from Westbrook, though it was more than just a letter, it was a message of gratitude. In it, Westbrook wrote, "I've watched you grow, not just as a leader, but as someone who understands the true meaning of success. It's not about what we achieve for ourselves, but what we do for others. You have taught me more than I could ever repay, and I am forever grateful." The words were simple, but they carried a weight of sincerity. It was a reminder of how far they had both come, and how much they had learned from each other. As Lily read the letter, she realized that, despite the immense success she had achieved, it was not the recognition or the accolades that had brought her the most fulfillment. It was the impact she had made on others, the lives she had touched, and the difference she had helped create. The world had changed, and it had changed for the better. But Lily knew that her journey wasn't over. There was still much to be done. She still had people to help, causes to champion, and communities to uplift. But as she sat quietly in her room, reflecting on everything she had accomplished, she smiled. She had always known that greatness wasn't about the size of your empire, but the size of your heart. And as she looked ahead, Lily knew that as long as she stayed true to herself, the impact she made would continue to grow. She had started with nothing but her willingness to help, and now, she had become a force for good in the world, a quiet, steady force that would leave a lasting legacy for generations to come. In this inspiring tale of a young girl's resilience and a billionaire CEO's transformation, we dive into the heart of millionaire stories that go beyond wealth and status. This is a story that reveals the true power of humility, leadership, and the impact of kindness. When a maid's daughter points out a mistake in a million-dollar deal, she changes the trajectory of a billionaire's life and business. As we explore the journey of this young girl, we see how a single act of courage can ripple through lives and transform communities. In the world of millionaire stories, we often hear about success built on money and power, but this story shows that true success is about making a positive impact on others. The millionaire stories of today often focus on financial accomplishments, but the story of this young girl reminds us that the most valuable thing we can achieve is how we uplift others along the way. As the billionaire CEO grows, we witness a shift not just in his business, but in his understanding of leadership and success. Through this millionaire story, we learn that greatness isn't measured by how much you can accumulate, but by how much you can give back to the world. In the end, this millionaire story is not just about wealth. It's about the journey of becoming a person who changes lives, including their own. The story of this young girl and the CEO shows that even in a world driven by money and power, kindness and humility can still lead to the most meaningful success. This is not just another millionaire story. It is a lesson in life, leadership, and the power of giving back.